Hello and welcome to the Unlucky Frog Gaming Podcast. You are joined by your usual hosts here. We've got Ben Porter.
Hello.
We've got Tom Mannering.
Hello.
And we've got myself, Josh Hartley, here. How are we all doing, guys? Tom, you've had like some important real world stuff happen to you yesterday, specifically.
I did. Yes, I did. I got my first COVID jab, which was very quick and very efficient, and made me feel like crap. So it's been great. But no, it's not too bad, and it's worth the suffering in the long term. So go and get it done, folks. That's my serious message for the week.
Yeah, absolutely. Get your vaccine as soon as you're called up. How have you been otherwise then?
Good. I had a couple of days off work, so I sorted out a few bits of hobby stuff. I've ordered the new Kill Team expansion. I got a new expansion for Marvel Champions this morning in the post, so it's all coming up roses hobby-wise for me.
You never posted the Marvel Champions in the group chat. You normally post it so that we can all make jokes about running an intervention.
Well, yeah, that's. I'll be honest, I forgot.
Okay.
With my head being a bit fuzzy this morning, it didn't actually occur to me. But you can send me messages after the stream if you want.
Yes, I'll consider it.
Thanks. It's very kind.
Ben, how's your week been?
My week's been a little bit intense. Like I said to you guys before we started recording, this has been the first week that we've had in a while where we've not had a bit of help with Nathaniel for part of the week. So it's been tough juggling my various commitments, but we got there, and I still did manage to do a bunch of painting. Specifically, I've got a bunch of Mr. Hartley's Death Guard painted this week. So
yeah, you have. I've saw the almost finished Tallyman on your Facebook for Ashenhold Art. So he's looking great, and he was just showing off the little Nurgling before we started recording there. Yeah. I think Nurglings are probably like my favourite element of the Death Guard. They're all brilliant. Like any that come with the character models.
I feel that Nurglings, probably of all the sort of the various entities and creatures that you get within the Nurgle ranges, both in Age of Sigmar and 40k, they probably most embody Nurgle, the essence of Nurgle, I think.
Yeah, because he's supposed to be
horrible little plague-ridden creatures, but they're jolly little fellows as well.
I was gonna say, yeah, Nurgle's supposed to be a pretty happy guy most of the time. So yeah, there we are. So yeah, we've got a few things to discuss.
Hang on, how are you, Josh?
Oh, I'm all right. Yeah, I said before the recording, no chat at all, really. Just been working away. I have got my Necron Warriors, the first batch of them finished now, so that's 20 of them done. And I've started work on the Scorpec Destroyers that are in Indomitus, and they're great. They look so cool. I haven't even finished them, but I'm like, these guys look awesome. I can't wait to get back.
Which ones are they?
They're they are the sort of bigger infantry models with 3 legs, and they've got like massive blades.
I know which ones you mean now. It's
basically like, it's the concept of like a centaur, but with a Necron and a Scorpion.
That's quite cool.
I feel like that adequately explains the whole concept.
It kind of looks like, when you put a warrior next to one of them, it kind of looks like an evolution chain in Pokemon. like at the top of the chain is the Scorpec Destroyer Lord. But yeah, otherwise not been up to an awful lot. But we do have some bits and pieces of news to talk about. The first off the block, All or Nothing have announced that 1815 Scum of the Earth will be launching on Kickstarter soon. This is, of course, the follow-on from 1066 Tears for Many Mothers and 1565 St. Elmo's Ploy, the historical-based...
St. Elmo's Pay.
Well, now I look like an idiot. St.
Good
Elmo's
bit into
Pay.
the podcast this time, though, so, you know.
Wow. I thought you doped up might make you a little nicer to me, but evidently I am wrong. Like...
Cannot suppress it, mate. I'll be on my deathbed like, tell Josh, I said screw you.
That's fair. 1565 St. Elmo's Pay. I beg your pardon. So these are... Has Tristan named the system? Is it just the historical battle games that he's... I don't know.
He has named it. Hold on.
Oh, I should have looked this up.
Yeah.
Bringing your
We
professionalism.
could have got away
as
with it
always.
if you hadn't asked if he'd named it, but now that
I know you could have just breezed past it, and no one would have been any the wiser.
Well,
Make a rod for your own back.
Okay, so the All or Nothing historical battle series has now been officially named the Historic Epic Battle System.
there we go. So 1815 Scum of the Earth, of course, is the Battle of Waterloo as well, and you get to choose either the Iron Duke or Napoleon. So, looking forward to that. We really like 1066. We still haven't got 1565 played. Thank you, global pandemic. But if by all accounts, 1565 is a pretty good game as well. So looking forward to seeing more of 1815.
Absolutely. I mean, we really enjoyed 1066, and it's really quite ingenious what Tristan's done, where it's an evolution of the sort of card game quest system that you have in like a lot of the Fantasy Flight living card games. Specifically, it put me in a mind of like the Lord of the Rings card game, where you're basically playing this mini campaign. It's just a really neat system, so I'm looking forward to seeing what he does with Waterloo. Yeah,
absolutely. Other bits of news. We already knew that Hachette were going to be doing a new Partworks magazine for Warhammer 40,000. We got a lot more detail on that earlier this week, and it's officially launched as well. So it is called Warhammer 40,000 Imperium. Very similar to previous iterations like Conquest and Age of Sigmar. What was the Age of Sigmar one called again?
It was called Mortal Realms. And
Mortal Realms.
I mean, we're talking about past tense. The Mortal Realms is still going in the same way.
That's true.
Same way that when Mortal Realms began, Conquest was still going.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, they have a span that goes on for way over a year, possibly. I think 2 years.
Well, I mean, we know for this one that it's going to be 80 issues. So, well over a year. We know the contents of the first 4 issues. Nothing terribly surprising. Some of the characters from Indomitus. We've got some easy build Necrons, Assault Intercessors, and we've got the Scorpec destroyers that I was talking about earlier as well. What we do know, though, is we've got like the big group shot of everything that you're going to get in over the entire course of the magazine. So as well as all the terrain that they usually throw in, you get a pretty sizable Necron army. And what I think is really interesting that they've done is on the Imperium side, it isn't just Space Marines. You're going to get some Sisters of Battle, and you're going to get some Adeptus Mechanicus as well. So I've subscribed to it because I'm a sucker. But
just a really good headline there. Josh subscribes to new GW product. Nobody is surprised.
Yeah.
I think as cool as it is that they're chucking some Sisters of Battle and some Adeptus Mechanicus into the mix, I feel like they kind of have to, because given that most people subscribing to Imperium will have already subscribed to Conquest, they're going to have a lot of Space Marines already.
Yeah, exactly right, and it's just nice to have a bit of variety. So you were subscribed, Ben, to Mortal Realms, so now that that's kind of coming towards the end of the life cycle, was that worth it for you?
I would say up to a point. For me, the sort of early issues of Mortal Realms coincided with when lockdown kicked off, so it was quite nicely timed because it gave me something else to work on, and it meant that I was working on quite a few Night Hunt, which I don't really collect them myself. It gave me something else to do because I already had like the Soul Wars half with the Stormcast. I did find that I've got a lot of Stormcast doublers, and I think this is maybe I would say one of the I guess some people won't even see it as a problem because they're just getting models at a really, really good price. But for me, I think the problem with a lot of the early issues of these part works is that if you're already all in on 40k or Age of Sigmar, you probably already own a lot of the models in those early issues.
Yeah, I'm certainly going to get a couple of models that I already own. I mean, like the Necron Warriors, like I think you're always going to want more Necron Warriors.
Well, that's fine because like the Indomitus Necron Warriors, that's basically the Necron Warrior kit. It's a bit more of a pain for your Space Marines, right? Because they're quite an elite army, and then you're going to have like the same sculpts repeating throughout your army, which, I mean, I guess like a lot of people that are just wanting to build an army to game with are maybe not bothered by that, but I'm a little bit more fussy with how my army looks, and I hate having the same sculpts.
Absolutely, no. I'm the same. If I can help it, like I'm not gonna get precious about, like I said, the Necron Warriors because I'm gonna have like dozens of them. So that's not an issue. But those the Scorpec Destroyers, I'm gonna have a look and see if there's a different way that I can build them up so that they've got slightly different poses to the three that I got in Indomitus. And yeah, there's characters like I get the first issue as a Royal Warden, which I already have. So I don't know. I'll probably just give that to someone. It's like a token. Here's a token Necron. But at least I suppose with the Space Marine stuff, you could paint it a different chapter. Is the only other thing that you could maybe do just to vary it up a bit. You actually get some Ultramarine specific stuff at some point because they're gonna lame.
Yeah.
Right? You get Magnus Calgar, you get his Honor Guard, and you get Reboot Gilliman as well. So
they're not quite big models.
Yeah. Well, Manius Calgar's like probably sort of Terminator size, but he's got his two flunkies. But that'll be one sprue. That'll be one issue.
Because Gilliman's massive.
Yeah.
Yep.
Gilliman might be like staggered over 2 or 3 issues.
Right. Okay.
But they did the same in Mortal Realms, where they included the Celestant Prime, which is the big dude for the Stormcast, and then in the latter issues of Conquest, they did quite a few tanks.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, like they don't seem to be doing any tanks in this one, but there are definitely bigger kits. Like you've got like the big Necron Walker, in there, like the aforementioned Reboot Gilliman. You get the Outriders as well, like the new bikers from Indomitus. So it's Fohammer, which Ben does some work for, did a really good article on it where they break down actually like how much you get and how much you save by subscribing to it. So we'll provide a link to that article in the show notes.
Fohammer in general, I know it's a bit of a plug because I write for them, but Fohammer is the best place for information with regards to the Games Workshop part works, because he gets all of his information direct from Hachette. So he ahead of time will publish on the website what's going to be available in coming issues. So it means that if you don't necessarily want to subscribe, you know when to maybe keep an eye out in shops for specific issues.
Mm-hmm. A nice thing with this one as well is they've got a premium subscription, which in previous iterations, I don't know.
No, that's that. They definitely had that. No, they had it in both. They did. That's not.
Yeah, but no. What I was going to say is I don't know whether it was worth it in the previous subscriptions.
No, it's more or less the same idea where you get a bunch, basically like a small army.
Yeah.
Spread out throughout the year, and you get some literature with it. In the first one, they actually did like a subscription-specific Space Marine chapter called the Silver Templars, and they had painting guides for them and everything.
Yeah.
And a transfer sheet, and then for Age of Sigmar, they're doing what they're doing with Imperium, where it's like 4 other factions.
Yeah. So with this one, you if you pay £2 per issue more, you'll get like a big box of Chaos Space Marines, Tyranids, Tau, and Orcs right at the end. I didn't go for that. Like, I think if I was really, really keen on one of those factions, I might have, but nah. But again, it's
for me, like
savings.
with the magazines already, I actually sought my subscription because I've actually still got a pretty sizable backlog of stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like the premium thing is just going to add to
Yeah.
your shelf of shame unless you're an absolute machine and have no other commitments.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You know, there's not much point in buying more models to sit and gather dust unbuilt, unpainted. However, if you listening are considering subscribing to Imperium, but you're concerned that you're not going to be able to paint all of them, we do have a solution for you.
What is that solution, Josh?
Ashen hold art! Air horn sound effects!
Jesus.
It's been ages since I've done it.
It is. I'll give you that bit. I'll give you that.
It's the most like clunky segue that he does it with as well, isn't it?
You can tell it's coming as like it like rollerballs excitement into it.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll provide a link for Ashen Hold Art as well if you should you wish to check out Ben's commission painting service,
which is great. To be fair,
thank you guys. Thank you for the
Yeah.
shameless plug, Josh. And thank you for the compliment, Tom.
Rightio. So something not news-wise, but something that we've been doing this week is the three of us got started again on our Age of Sigmar Soulbound campaign. So we've picked up with Daegron, which is Ben's character, the Fire Slayer. I am still playing Norgrand, the Caradron Overlord. And Tom has created a new character for this part of campaign. So, you were playing Alenza, who was like a Stormcast Eternal previously. So, was there a particular reason why you wanted to try a different character?
There were a couple of reasons. So, I think one of the big ones for me, and I kind of said this to you guys, is the Stormcast just felt a bit OP in the role playing game, because they're very strong character build wise because they're Stormcast, but you've also got the prestige that immediately comes with them. It's just if you're playing the game right, which I know is a controversial way to put it, but you know, in the lore, as far as I understand it, they have a lot of influence in the mortal realms.
Yeah.
And we did find that, you know, when we were doing things, there was a lot of deference. And there was, from a storyline perspective, there was a bit of tension between Alenza and Daegrum. And so Scott, our GM, very kindly let myself and Josh do a little mini arc where Alenza kind of got to wrap up his immediate goals. But then I said I kind of wanted to play just a bit more of a grounded character who wasn't quite as
Can I just interject
ridiculous.
there and say that I had to leave because I was moving house. Tom and I did not fall out over this game.
Yeah.
Just in
Sorry,
case
no,
anyone
that's
thinks
a good point to make.
Yeah.
There's that bit where Ben wasn't on the podcast as well. You could really spin a drama out of all this. Like, oh, you know, Ben and Tom had a massive falling out, and no, it was nothing like that. So I've made a new character who is Niara Puckhart, who is kind of she's a trade pioneer, but she's a bit of a roguish, sort of bardish character almost. She's got a bit of knowledge. She's a bit of a jack of all trades. She's a bit more my speed as well. She's a bit more fun and less stormcasty.
Less booting Skaven into lava.
But
that was just a good time.
One of the things that we'd even said, and it's kind of jarring that, like, on all the cover art, the Stormcast is front and center. I kind of get it because they are like the poster children of the setting, but the other weird thing is they're not actually part of the binding, which is the context that basically groups your characters together. Like, you know, where you know, like they fleshed out a lot more in the new Champions of Order supplement, but it's like one of the gods of the pantheon in the mortal realms has bound these souls together for a specific purpose, but the Stormcast is like peripheral to it. It's weird.
Yeah, I think if it had been my call to make, I wouldn't have included Stormcast as an initial playable race. I would have probably brought them out further down the line and focused on the other races of Order, and maybe done a bit more with humans, because they only really had Trade Pioneer and Battle Wizard out the gate, and you could have done a bit more, you know, with them, and then kind of brought the Stormcast in later for maybe higher level play as well, you know, to add to a group. Maybe if your character dies and you can't bring a new character into the binding, so you come back as a Stormcast who's more powerful and can match up with the rest of the party, and then you can kind of do the Stormcast justice for how they do kind of rack up against a, you know, rank and file dude. Not to say that anyone in Soulbound group's weak.
Yeah. Well, one of our initial criticisms was with regards to the whole binding thing, because it's alluded to, but it's not really explained, and like, it does have mechanics and all that. But certainly, we were all kind of scratching our heads a little with the original rulebook. But again, Champions of Order, they fleshed that out a lot more. But I think that with regards to the binding, I would say one of the things that they maybe need to work towards is actually having a mechanic that explains the existence of a Stormcast in the party. And like, for me, it would be as simple as your Stormcast is not soulbound; they are oathbound to a party. Why are they oathbound to the party? And then that's a very neat and simple way of if someone wants to play that character, what oath of service are they sworn to with this party? Why are they there? Blah blah blah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that would be a strong way to do it. And we have kind of said there were a few weaknesses with the core book, the binding being one of them, the short and long-term goals being very nebulous and not having any kind of examples given, that Champions of Order really kind of does address quite well, with a lot more sort of sample binding, sample goals for all the different races. Just gives you a bit more context.
Yeah. One of the things that I especially like about the Champions of Order book is that it fleshes out character gen as a whole, because it adds new spells, new prayers, and new talents, and it also adds in this system where you actually pick what sub-faction your character belongs to. So if you're a Kharadron Overlord, it's what Skyport you're from, or if you're a Fire Slayer, it's what lodge you're from. And it actually gives you a perk for that. So my character, Daegrum, although he is from my homebrew lodge, the Hruckvorn Lodge, he is originally from the Ulrung Lodge in Shaiish, because this is one of the sort of cool new things that helps with storytelling with the Fire Slayers, is that if a lodge is wiped out or disbanded, what happens is they go and they're absorbed by other lodges. So it means that it's not like the dwarves of old, like where, you know, they're going down with their ship once their hold's gone, that's it, they're all shaving their heads and then they're dead kind of thing. There's still a sense of progression. So the Ulrung perk, you actually get 2 talents for being Ulrung. I think it's called something like it's like Embers of Grimnir, the rule's called. It gives you the rule Urgold Mastery, which means that you permanently keep one of your Urgold runes. Like, even after an adventure's gone, you always have the power of that. You the idea is that you've mastered your Urgold so much that you can still like harness energy through it even after it's spent. And then the other one you get, which is awesome, is Old Enemy parenthesis Undead. So it's kind of like the, you know, like the Undead Killer trait in Final Fantasy, where you've got an edge when you're fighting against undead. But what I've worked out is my soul stat is 4, and the number of Urgold runes that you can use is determined by your soul stat. So with Urgold Mastery, I'll double check this, but I think I can have 5 Urgold runes active.
Oh, nice.
Good.
So it means that I can actually use Daegrum as like a full on like D&D cleric style character, where he can become pretty nasty in melee, as well as having all his prayers.
It's never a bad thing. Do you know what else is in Champions of Order?
What's that?
No.
Lumineth Realm Lords.
Oh yeah, Tom. Why didn't you build a Lumineth Realm Lord?
Do you know I did look at them? I spent a day building my new character, and I was like, it'd be kind of funny if I rocked up to the session with Ben and Josh and was like, "Here's my character. I hate them already." But nah, they didn't interest me, given my particular hatred. But I was scrolling down through new character options, and then they've got obviously a big spread, and I was just every page winced me, and I was scrolling through it.
I can't wait for the Destruction supplement to come out, because I think it would be so fun to do a campaign as Destruction heroes.
That's like orcs and ogres, right, and stuff?
It's
ogres,
all the greenskins, ogres, the giants, although I very much doubt they're going to let us play a Son of Behemoth.
I like that they're going to do it, but that to me screams like one shot. I think that would potentially get pretty tedious right away. I suppose the other thing is that there's maybe not anything stopping you from plugging an orc in a regular Soulbound game, in theory, is there?
I don't know the I am not anywhere near as familiar with the lore of Age of Sigmar as you are, Ben. So like the issue in other fantasy settings, like the Forgotten Realms, for an example, is like you can play a full-blooded orc, but people see you as a monster. You know, like it makes role playing quite problematic, because every town that you go in, the first reaction of any NPC is to either run or kill you. So, how are the orcs treated in Age of Sigmar? Is it?
There are accounts, and I've certainly seen instances in the lore where they actually work as mercenaries in some of the cities, things like that. It's not as if they're a common sight, but it does happen. And then obviously we've seen in Cursed City, there's an ogre in the ensemble for that. So
yeah,
they're not in Warhammer Fantasy. They were one of like the evil races, right? But not so much in Age of Sigmar. I guess like the evil factions are probably like, you know, Death and Chaos.
Some of the factions in Order, frankly.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, some of the Order factions, yeah, but Destruction as a whole, they lean more into this sort of, they're more like a force of nature type thing. They're not inherently evil, and some people pay to harness that force of nature. So.
In the old Road Trader role playing game, you could play an orc. You play an orc freebooter in that. as well. They found a way to kind of because rogue traders kind of sit on the fringes of the Imperium in every sense. They could have Xenos races, so they could have like Orcs and Eldar and a few others as well. So I think it's doable. Certainly, I think it's. I'd actually rather run an Orc in an Order group than in a Destruction group, because you'd have presumably the rest of the team kind of reining them in. Whereas if you go full Destruction, as Ben says, it's just going to be a bit of smash and grab. It's not really going to have much in the way of structure. So you'd only get maybe a one shot or a mini arc out of it.
I think the character that I would want to build out of the Destruction faction would be a Gloomspite Git. Just to play this utterly horrible goblin would be quite fun. But
it's a weird
balance.
One.
On you go.
No, after you, sir. Insist.
I was just going to say, it's probably a bit of a balancing act, though, not making him so obnoxious that no one wants to play in a campaign with you. But yeah, I think it would be fun.
It's always a tricky thing with, like, lots of systems have tried it before, where you play as an evil party or a party of anti-heroes, can very quickly go off the rails. You run a high risk of things like PvP or touching on subject matters that people really don't want to address because of the baddies. There have been some successful elements of it. Pathfinder did a campaign called Hell's Vengeance, I think it was, where you played as evil characters, but you were all lawful evil, so you were all very much kind of tyrannical rather than just sow the seeds of chaos. I think if you've got a group that's all facsimiles of the Joker, it's not going to end well.
Yeah, I think like lawful evil is one of the alignments that I think is really interesting to play. Chaotic evil, I think, is really difficult to do well, like without just being just awful for awful's sake.
By definition, it runs roughshod over everything, right? Including other players. So
that's it, right? And you don't want to be that player, right? Who's pissing off the rest of the party.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you walk a line with that. If you play a system with like alignment, chaotic neutral can always be a bit of a questionable one as well, because you're not tied to the benevolence of being good. You kind of straddle that line between good and evil. But because you're chaotic, you could be doing anything. Not to get into an alignment debate, but I've seen there's a reason why chaotic neutral is sometimes called chaotic douchebag, because that's exactly it.
Whereas like the other chaotic alignment, chaotic good, we could actually sit here and rhyme off a load of characters in like video games and TV that are that. You're a good guy, but you've got your own moral code.
Yep.
So you still have strictures that you're adhering to. You just tend to shirk authority. Like the epitome of chaotic good is Dirty Harry, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Actually, the first fictitious character that comes to mind for chaotic good would be Aladdin. Like,
I don't think I would say Aladdin's more sort of neutral good.
Yeah, he
could
honest. Go either way, right?
Yeah. Maybe.
It's weird because an interesting one that comes up with that is Batman, because a lot of people say Batman's lawful good, but then you're like, well, he's a vigilante, so he's going against the structure, so is he not neutral good or chaotic good? But then it's like, but he actually plays by his own set of rules, so does that then not make him lawful again? So it's it's a tricky one for sure.
It's as much as the D&D compass is like the most fleshed out as far as alignment goes. Even then, very seldom does a character fit neatly into any one of those categories. And the other thing is that it's actually quite boring from a storytelling perspective if a character stays neatly in one of those boxes. Your alignment shifts, doesn't it?
Yeah. I've seen like characters of mine that have survived and have played I'd played for like years. Definitely started shifting in their like, I think I said to Tom, if Orlan didn't get killed when he did, he was probably shifting down to like true neutral rather than neutral good, because he was starting to get really jaded with the rest of the world.
I think the alignment system works well if you assume it's the default of how your character will react without any external pressures or stresses.
Yeah.
But then as soon as you start to put other stresses on that, there's no reason why they can't and shouldn't come out of those boxes.
Sure, yeah.
There's how you act on a day-to-day basis, and then does that get tested if you're put in a situation that you just can't reconcile that alongside.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's an episode in itself.
We went so far off piece there that we're on a different mountain. So, but yeah, no, so bringing it back to Age of Sigmar, we've been having fun with it. It was good to meet Puck, and good to get stuck into a new campaign. So we are in Anvil Fall, is it?
Anvil Guard.
Anvil Guard. Yeah, there we go. That's me getting things wrong again.
Something new for you.
So Anvil Guard we're still in the realm of fire, but we're in a more tropical region, whereas the Tempest's Eye that we were in before was probably more sort of rugged, mountainous part of the world. So there's Anvil Guard's surrounded by like this monstrous jungle that's always trying to swallow everything up, but the alchemists in the city keep it at bay with this miasma. So it's a really interesting city because it's got this permanent like fog, this permanent gloom hanging over it, which is quite atmospheric. It meshes quite nicely with the Anvils of the Heldenhammer persona.
Yeah.
And then also it's basically the Dark Elf city in Age of Sigmar as well. It's full of Corsairs and Darkling Covens, etc.
It's interesting because when Scott ran us through the initial campaign, that was all of his own making. But now this is actually the Shadows in the Mist campaign, which is a scripted campaign. And I know that's another criticism we kind of leveled against Soulbound was the lack of scripted material for GMs to kind of balance their creations against, because Scott was just throwing stuff against a wall and seeing what stuck, really, if we're
he
being honest.
He did a great job. Like fortunately Scott has a lot of knowledge about Age of Sigmar that he was able to draw upon, but
yeah,
I think he'd be kind of stuck if he didn't, certainly at the beginning.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely. I couldn't have GM'd it for Toffee. Just be saying that you're in a mortal realm. There are things happening. Events transpire. That's game. See you later.
Yeah. Good job, guys. Good job. And also, on a related note, Tom, you pointed out that the day we were playing this, it was GM Appreciation Day.
It was, yes. So March the 4th is recognised as GM Appreciation Day. I do not know who by. I don't know who invented this, but I'm a big fan of their work.
I was going to say, I'm guessing it's a GM.
Yeah, I would imagine so. But I think it's a great thing. I think there are a lot of GMs out there, and I've known a lot of GMs in my time that don't get the appreciation they deserve for the time, the money, dedication, the patience, if we're being brutally honest, that they put into what they do. And while I am lucky, Josh, to have players that are grateful, not all GMs have that luxury. So, nice little tidbit.
I think particularly GMs that take part in organised play. It's one thing running a game for people that you know and you're friends with, but when it could be anyone rocking up, I imagine that can be quite testing.
For sure, definitely, and I can tell you from having done a lot of organised play, over 150 games, in fact, as the trophy to my left says, you will get some truly horrendous and truly ungrateful swines of players at your table, who I always think of role playing, and I think anyone should and does, as a collaborative experience, and you get out of it what you put into it. And if you turn up to a game and you look at the GM and you go, "You entertain me," you have come in with the wrong mindset straight away.
Yeah. Dan Harmon phrases it quite eloquently when he says that role-playing games are essentially collective storytelling games.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Do you want to share any war stories? with us, Tom? Or
I could be here all day, to be honest. I've had and I've heard of players falling asleep at tables. Players like the one that, and you've seen this firsthand, Josh. I have very little tolerance for people sitting on their phones during games.
yes,
Because I find it really ignorant. If I was talking to you socially and you were on your phone, I'd give you a slap. So if I'm
I've been in parties where everyone does that. In the first few sessions, I was a bit like, "What is everyone doing?"
Aye.
But it was like no one criticised it. No one pulled it up. I think it was this. I think the perception within that party was that, like you do your bit with the DM, the GM, and then the next one cycles in, and then but yeah, it made for quite a weird experience.
I was going to say it's maybe fair enough if everyone at the table is fine doing that, but like to me that just strikes me as like everyone just waiting for their turn and not engaging with any of the other parties. You're kind of like just running an adventure for 5 solo.
Well, that's
players.
it. Yeah, that's 5 solo campaigns. It's 5 solo stories. You're not building a story together. You're not engaging. Like by way of example, when we've played Star Wars Online or other things, the group get excited when someone succeeds or someone fails because you're invested in everybody's actions as they contribute towards the group. I remember a couple of weeks ago we had an episode in Star Wars where it was very sort of close to the knuckle. You were trying to escape an Imperial detention center, and everybody was really nervous about every check and every action that the rest of the party were taking, because not only were they invested in what that player was doing, but how that impacted them and the story as a whole. And that's how it should be. It should be, shared excitement, shared enjoyment, whatever emotion you're trying to bring to the table. And yeah, as I hate it. I hate unengaged players. And I think it is one of the first things. And there are some really ungrateful buggers out there that I have had the misfortune of GMing for. Not so much these days, thankfully. I kind of whittled them out of my campaigns fairly promptly.
I was like a late addition to that group. So, as much as I found it weird, I didn't feel I could particularly go, hey, excuse me, can we put the phones away, please? Because that was like the established culture within the group, but equally I didn't feel right doing that myself, so my compromise was I just brought some of my miniatures along and I would just like paint them at the table.
Yeah.
There is a time and a place that I don't mind so much. If it's a very detached scene and their character doesn't necessarily need to know, if you really need to go and check your phone, if you're messaging someone and planning something for later that night or the next day, I'll allow that, for want of a better way of putting it. But if it's just 2 minutes off your character and you're on your phone all the time, and it gets tricky to monitor as well, because people who use their phone for the character sheets, for rules,
I was going to say that.
It gets really, really tricky. But don't do it. Show your party and show your GM a little respect. They've all made the time to be there with your company and to have the experience together. So have the bloody experience together.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit with regards to the phone thing. It's like when you're in church, like a lot of people have, like they say they have their Bible on their phone now, but you can tell the ones that are at it because they never once look up. Because most people, if they're just using it for reference, they have it in front of them and they consult it when they need to. So like similarly, like in role playing games, if someone's always on their phone and they say, "Oh, I'm on my character app," it's bullshit.
Yeah. No, you're spot on, and you can tell when someone's checking rules and when someone's playing Candy Crush or whatever else it might be that they're doing. If you're still connected to the game when you're checking rules, you're going to have an ear on it. You're going to still have focus on it because your focus is still RP related. It's all together.
Well,
I realize I'm doing a lot of hand gestures.
With like war games, right? Like if you're playing a game, you've got your codex or your battle tome open in front of you. I'm talking to you, referencing back to my book. I'm not permanently losing my book. So take note, everyone. The thing about having your phone in front of you all the time doesn't wash. We know you're playing Candy Crush.
And I think the spin-off of this that we kind of wanted to talk about with regards to GMing, and it ties into kind of GM appreciation to a point, is pay to play role-playing games and GMing sessions, because they're becoming, especially in lockdown, where online RPGs are becoming a lot more necessary. We're seeing a lot more GMs offering services as GMs online and charging players for the privilege. So thought we could have a bit of a quick dialogue about that.
I think one of the things that you guys pointed out, because you guys have been involved in a discussion on Facebook about this, I don't think it's weird. I think that's a perfectly, if someone wants to, if that's how someone wants to spend their money, and I can totally see why someone would want to do it as well. You might have a group of friends who really want to give Dungeons and Dragons a go, but none of you are like so familiar or confident with the rules and setting that you'd be wanting to do the GM part. So I completely get it. I think other than a couple of times where I've been to organised play sessions, though, I don't think I've ever actually parted money to pay a GM. I think the only time was when if Tom's been buying in like materials or supplements, and you've wanted
little
us
do
to
you
chip
know,
in.
Josh, you've got a humongous invoice headed your way, boy.
Yeah. So
It's an interesting one because I think there are two ways you can look at it. I think you can go straight up pay to play, which is I'm running a session tonight, be it organized play, I'm running it online, whatever it is, and you're going to pay me £4 for the session, £2 to the venue, £2 to me. I've seen it done a couple of different ways, and that's going to cover my costs for traveling in potentially, food that I have to get while I'm there, and a contribution towards like books and prep time and things like that. Because for every sort of hour of role playing time you're getting from a GM, they've probably put another half an hour into that to prep it at least. I would say, if I'm being generous. But the way I kind of do it, I don't charge you guys. I've never put a fiscal value to the sessions I run for you. But I think there's a couple of interesting sort of socially accepted dynamics where, like, for example, as you said, if I need like lots of maps and I know it's going to cost me like 40 quid, I'll be like, look, I'm going to have to buy 40 quid worth of maps. Would you guys mind chipping in a £5 towards it each? Yeah. The other thing as well is I think there's a bit of player deference where it'll be like GM gets choice of seats, GM sets times, GM sets, start time, end time. As well as that, you'll get people who, like Scott makes me dinner when we used to play at home, so I didn't have to deal with that. When we get off the bus, you'd go to the shop and get me things I needed from the shop. There's ways that you pay in a less direct fiscal way, where you support the GM, and I think that's a really good way, tying it to appreciation as well, to kind of show you appreciate your GM and contribute towards their running costs, for want of a better word.
I'm going to come straight in with, I actually think that, I don't know where it comes from, but I feel like maybe it's the fact that we now have basically a working population that's lived through two once-in-a-lifetime financial catastrophes. That could be a contributing factor. But I think that there is a real prevalent poverty mentality throughout the Western world, for want of a better word, and you see it in everything. You see it in folks like quibbling about prices for like art commissions on Twitter. There's a great page on Twitter if stuff like this tickles your funny bone. It's called For Exposure, and what happens is artists anonymously send in messages that they've been sent from people. And it's anything from like someone looking for someone to animate this concept that they've had for an entire TV show, and it'll have statements in it like, you better not be driven by money, you should be doing this for the art and all that, as if wanting to be paid for what you do points to some sort of moral deficiency.
Yep, I get that.
I just it really, to be frank, it really pisses me off, given the fact that I've spent the last 10 years working in construction. And there is a link here, and that is an industry that has a lot of very unfair reputations surrounding it, where there's this perception that tradesmen are have this propensity to rip people off, to overcharge them, where actually the reverse is true, because there's very little protections in place for self-employed people. So what it does mean is that you speak to anyone who's self-employed, be they a tradesman, an artist or whatever, they will have a string of stories about times that they've been ripped off, times that they've spent sometimes literally hours arguing with someone, trying to justify the price that they've charged them for things. And for me, this whole thing about the gripes that we saw on Facebook, Tom, about pay to play with D&D is just another manifestation of that mentality.
Yeah,
is that, that sense of entitlement, that sense that they shouldn't have to pay for something. And do you know what? I'm going to bring class into this. Generally speaking, it's people that have money that complain about having to part with it.
Yeah, I don't think that's necessarily untrue at all.
I was just going to say, I think similarly, another reason behind it, Ben, is I think there's an ignorance on some people in that they don't view it as work for the person involved. Mm-hmm. Like some people.
But this is the thing again, right? Is that it's that thing about it being perceived as a moral deficiency. It's like, well, if you enjoy it, you shouldn't be getting paid for it.
Yeah, which is complete bullshit, because that's fine. I will enjoy painting my own miniatures or running my own games. Well, it's you who's come to me.
Yeah, that's it. You've come to me for a service, and I said this in the Facebook group. It's the quote from the Joker from Dark Knight. If you're good at something, don't do it for free. And you shouldn't. Yeah. A GM, a good GM.
I thought you were going to say you get what you deserve there.
So
no, the other Joker film. Sorry.
Yeah.
So a GM, a good GM, which most of your pay-to-play GMs will be, because otherwise they won't get the service, right? They won't get the customers. Yeah. They're gonna have a lot of books that they've read. They put a lot of time into that. They've bought those books. They put hours into refining their craft. Learning how to do a game justice. Much like Ben says, with like tradesmen, it's not just what you see on the surface. It's not just you're buying a bit of plaster for the wall. You're buying the time that tradesman's put into to learn the skill. All the underlying costs behind it, and people just don't see that, and they go, oh, well, you're a GM. You GM for your friend for free. You're not my friend, for a start. You're a randomer who wants me to do something for him. I had a similar one on the opposite side of it, where I got an art commission, because I get quite often, if I've got a roleplay group for any period of time, I'll get an art commission of the group. And sometimes I'll either ask the group to contribute, or I'll get it as a present for them, because I love seeing the party kind of brought to life on the page. And I paid £200 for one once, and I showed it to someone who wasn't really related to the RPG community. I said, oh, this is a commission I've got. And they said, oh, how much was that? And I said, oh, it's about £200. And they're like, you got ripped off. And I was like, I really didn't. And
see the thing about, and you'll know this, Tom, but this is where the benefit of the viewers, right, is there's a good chance that commission you got took more than 20 hours to do. Mm-hmm. Most artists are not even making minimum wage, and a lot of people don't realise this.
Yeah, exactly. And I love supporting commission artists, and I'll pick different ones to sort of support them, because it's a tough market. People are trying to cut costs on you. You've got a lot of competition. And every artist I've worked with, I've never had a bad experience with one, and I've been lucky, admittedly, because I know there are some cowboys out there. But every commission artist I've worked with, I've given them details of what I wanted. They've come back across the way. They've come back and said, how's this? To get feedback and updates. And if I've said, that needs changing, they'll go away and change it, which is then more of the time than the initial cost that they would have, built into the quote they've given me. And I've never had someone say, well, I changed that 3 times, so I'm charging you an extra £50. So I think if someone's good at what they do, and you're getting a service from them, pay them fairly. Don't bitch and whine about it.
I mean, ultimately as well, all of these things that we're describing, getting commission painting for miniatures, or commissioning a bit of art for an RPG group, these are all very much luxury items. Mm-hmm. So if you're balking at the thought of spending £200 on this bit of commission art, maybe you don't need it, and you shouldn't be buying it.
I think
I told you guys the other day. I actually had this person will remain anonymous, but I actually had someone. He came to me asking me about a commission, and then he asked about a student discount. Which, fair enough. I get that, but at the same time, it's a luxury item. It's not like your books or anything like that, where perhaps a student discount is in order. And when I gave him the price, he ghosted me after that, by the way. So I think that says a lot about the guy's overall attitude, right? But yeah, it's 100%. It's a things like that are luxury items, but it feeds in against to the fact that all of these are manifestations of a sense of entitlement, right?
Do you think this is getting better or worse?
I think it's getting worse, a lot worse. I think we have a culture now where people have a real sense of entitlement. They have a real sense that they deserve whatever they want, one way or another. This is me getting a bit cynical about society in general, right? But people, they don't want to work for stuff. They don't, they want things given to them for free. And it's a horribly progressive thing. You see it with like complaint culture and even to a degree cancel culture, where people just feel like they deserve to be able to dictate terms of things. And I'm like, you have no place beyond being a consumer to do that. And I've seen it both in professional roles I've had and in sort of more personal projects. My dad films weddings for his career, or at least he did before he retired. And he said he has never in his life seen as much entitlement as he saw when he was filming weddings for people, because it's their special day. They would expect him to do things that were quite literally physically impossible, to be in 6 places at once, or to have cameras, hanging from the ceilings of churches and stuff, just because they wanted it a certain way. And he said, people lose sort of a grasp on reality sometimes because they just want what they want, and it doesn't matter what the actual availability is.
Yeah,
it's a shame. To bring it back to GMing as well, one thing that I have seen a lot is people going, I can't get a GM, blah blah blah, I can't afford to pay for someone to GM, blah blah blah. And my response to that is, if you can't get a friend to GM and you can't afford to pay for someone to GM, why don't you learn to GM? And a lot of people say,
absolutely.
A lot of people will say, oh, I don't want to be a GM. I don't know how to GM. I don't have the confidence to GM. I wasn't born a GM. I didn't pop out the womb with a player's handbook in my hand and a set of dice. Like, I was literally a GM because nobody else in my group at a teenage age wanted to be a GM. So I took the books, I read them, I studied them, I started running, and I learned to appreciate it and enjoy it, and I do enjoy it. It's not to be cynical. I do enjoy it, but you learn the skills, and that's the same for anything. If you can't afford someone else to do it, learn to do it yourself, at least for luxury items.
Yeah, absolutely. I still need to have a crack at it. I've been threatening to have a shot at running Call of Cthulhu, just because I think that I really like that system, and I feel pretty confident with the rules of Call of Cthulhu compared to like a lot of other systems.
It's a fairly rules light system as well. There's a lot of the extra stuff you can just ignore and keep it very simple for yourself, which is a great one for a new GM like yourself. And there's loads of source material to draw from for
decades worth, right?
Quite literally.
Yeah. So just if you're in that scenario, have a crack at it yourself. What is the worst that can happen?
Yep. Appreciate your GMs and pay people for their services. That's the takeaways from today's episode.
There we go. Right, yeah. Well, I think on that more upbeat note, I think that's all we've got time for. So once again, guys, thank you very much for listening. Until next time, take care. Bye.